Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reid, and welcome to the review of The End of Oak Street, the new science fiction survival film written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, who gave us the horror film It Follows. It stars Anne Hathaway, who is in everything, it seems like, in 2026. Along with her is Ewan McGregor. And in this film, they are parents in this family whose suburban neighborhood has been transported from 1982 into prehistoric times. The film is also produced by J.J. Abrams, who is the man who gave us the prequel, well, not the prequel, but the sequel trilogy in Star Wars with Force Awakens and, God forbid, the Rise of Skywalker and Alias and Lost and Mission Impossible 3 and so on and so forth. But he's producing this film, and I must say I was very, very intrigued by it for one reason, not because of the prehistoric elements or Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor, who are all awesome and interesting at the same time. It was because of David Robert Mitchell. Not because I think he's a horrible director, not because I think he's a great director. It was just a weird choice I felt for this film, and that's me going in blind. When I first saw the trailer, I'm like, man, I didn't see this from David Mitchell or David Robert Mitchell. I didn't see this, going from that small philosophical horror film to this big, large summer blockbuster film with dinosaurs and all this other craziness going on. And so it was just a strange departure for him. And so I was intrigued by what this film was really going to do. And so we fast forward to the release, or what the film was about to release, and we're just riding this high of Anne Hathaway-isms, her renaissance, if you will. And I'm like, okay, man, I'm excited for this, if not for anything, for Anne Hathaway, coming off of the Odyssey, which I feel is an Academy Award worthy performance there. I'm like, okay, what can she do with this kind of out the box science fiction film, where she's a mom and they're running from dinosaurs and whatnot. Man, look, let me tell you, this was probably the second most fun I had in the theater this year. The third most fun I'll have in the theater this year so far. Spider-Man and The Furious being the other two times. This was a fun summer movie, just in time to end the summer. This was everything I remember as a kid growing up, going to the movies in the summertime and just enjoying these type of films, this kind of adventure type setting, this survival setting. And it was everything I remembered from the emblem era of Steven Spielberg and his productions. And it reminded me of The Goonies. It reminded me of Back to the Future. It reminded me of E.T. It reminded me of Jurassic Park, of course. It reminded me of all of those films. This was like the perfect homage to Steven Spielberg. This was a love letter to Steven Spielberg. I don't think Spielberg has made a good love letter to himself like this. It's weird. I really enjoyed this film more than I expected. And, like I said in previous reviews, I'm learning to damper my expectations going into films. And I went into this one with moderate expectations, and it exceeded it. It's well directed by David Robert Mitchell. I thought he did an excellent job with the pacing of this movie, with setting up not only the family that we're going to follow here with Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor and their children, but also the rest of the neighborhood. And we're pretty much introduced to them thoroughly in the first 10 to 15 minutes. It really flushed it out in an interesting way to keep you engaged. You weren't sitting there waiting like, oh man, when are we going to get to the dinosaurs? No, it was very well paced and interesting, story wise. There's drama there, with between Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor's characters. And you're intrigued by that story. You're intrigued by the children's story, what's going on in their lives, the neighbors and what's going on in their lives. And it's not harped upon too long, like this was taking center stage of the story. It was just there to give you an idea of who these people are and what they're all about. That way, when they're going through the terror and mayhem that's taking place later on in this film, you feel it. You feel it for every single character. Speaking of characters, man, I got to start off with Anne Hathaway. Once again, I know I've been beating on that drum for feels like this entire review, but Anne Hathaway really impressed me here. Impressed me more here than in the Odyssey. Now, with that being said, the Odyssey was the better performance, but she impressed me more in this film. Reason being, she didn't mail this in. This wasn't a paycheck movie. This could have easily been a paycheck movie for her and Ewan McGregor, but that's not the sense I got. I thought she really gave her all. She had to carry a heavy load throughout the majority of this movie. She really is the star of this film and goes through the most interesting arc throughout the film. Once we get to the end of the film, we were following her throughout, and she did an awesome job here. The emotional moments, the angry moments, the argumental moments, everything that her character goes through, you really feel it. And I'm not going to say no other actors could have done this. Yeah, of course they probably could have, but she did a phenomenal job to whereas I believed her as this character. Ewan McGregor also was great as the husband and the father of the children. I thought he played a real supportive role, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. He is supportive in this film. He gets second billing, but he's not like the star of this movie. We're not following him. He's not the main protagonist in this movie, but he really sits there and gives a lot to all of his co-stars, especially to Anne Hathaway's character. He is there for support, no matter what it is, literally and figuratively, if you've seen the film. I thought he carried it well. The children in here were fine. They were fine. They didn't blow my socks off. They were what they were. I didn't, I'm not going to say I'm sitting back looking at them like, man, I can't see what's next for these youngsters. No, they didn't get me there, but I think they did the job, the best they could. The best they could. Michael Giacchino's score it knocked this movie out the park. It elevated this movie to a completely different level. I'll say that the score in this film probably made it 10 times better than what the film really is. Because the movie is good, but it's not great. But the score was great, which kind of makes the elevates the film just past that middle tier. You know what I'm saying? So I love Michael Giacchino. He is probably one of my favorite. Well, he is one of them, but he's probably inching up to be my favorite at this point. I can listen to any score that he does, composes for a film. His Spider-Man Brand New Day score was very, very interesting, the way he switched it up. So I really, really, really appreciate his work on this film. The visual effects were amazing. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, man, these are better looking. This is probably the best looking dinosaurs since Jurassic Park: The Lost World. No kidding. I really enjoyed the look of these dinosaurs. They especially historically accurate looking. The raptors had feathers on them, and ever since the original Jurassic Park film, uh, paleontologists and scientists of all kinds have said that okay, they were cool looking, but actually we think that raptors had feathers because they got hollow bones or whatever. However they said it, who knows? No, who was around 60 million years ago to, to point it out accurately? But according to their studies, they had feathers on them, and they put them on these particular raptors and dinosaurs. The T-Rex looked pretty I think he had feathers too. All that was great looking. The I don't know what you call the thing. I'm not a paleontologist, but this big old eel spider boa constrictor, just giant thing, that was probably the freakiest looking thing in this movie. Uh, in the most terrifying looking thing in this film. Speaking of terrifying, this being the director of It Follows, the terror was there. He did that well. We know he can do that well. And he did that in spades here. I really didn't expect it to be that terrifying. This was a very scary movie at points, the claustrophobic feel when our characters were trapped in a room or trapped in a car or trapped in whatever situation they were in, and these dinosaurs or creatures were trying to get in. You really felt it, the way the camera was placed, and the acting from our actors in those scenes were like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? I started sweating, and I was nervous, man. There were scenes where we saw people in the neighborhood just getting demolished by these dinosaurs, and they didn't shy away from it. There's no blood and guts or anything like that, but it was close to it. They did everything up to that point, and that's when we didn't get to see the blood and stuff. But you didn't need to see it. You got the point with some of these deaths that take place on Oak Street. And to finish off my positives here, my number one impressive element of the end of Oak Street was the humor. The humor worked. And now it isn't a lot of it in here. There's not a lot of humor, but when we get humorous moments, they land. They really do land, and they come at the most, I guess you could say, convenient time for the audience, who's watching, because it'll come right after a terrifying scene or a horrific death or something of that nature, and it was it was just well placed and worked, and it broke the levity of everything. I thought that was genius by the filmmakers there. Going with my negatives, I don't have too many about the end of Oak Street, other than the fact that I said the humor works, but there are a couple of moments where I laughed, and I don't think I was supposed to. I don't think it was supposed to come off as humorous, but it did with me, and that could be a personal thing. I don't know. I'm not really going to blame the film too much on that. And the ending of this movie logically doesn't make sense. Now, you want to really break down logic, we're talking about a movie that has wormholes and an entire neighborhood gets transported into the past. But I'm talking like the rules of everything. I don't know and I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'm trying to tiptoe around it. But it's just the ending it didn't make sense to me. I didn't like it. I'll put it like that. I just did not like the ending. Now, was it a satisfying ending in the grand scheme of it all? Yeah, I guess, I guess it wrapped up nice. I'm just going to leave it alone, but just know that the ending just didn't work for me. One day I'll do a spoiler And once the movie gets further down the line, and I feel everybody done seen it, then I'll talk about it. But I can't spoil the ending. But overall, other than that, I was satisfied, even with the bad ending. And normally the ending would kill a movie for me. A movie could be great and the ending be bad, and I'm like, man, forget this movie. I sat here all this time for that, but I didn't walk away feeling that way with the end of Oak Street. I really was satisfied. It wasn't a bad ending. I just didn't like it. And I'll leave it at that. The end of Oak Street gets a letter grade of a B+. Yeah, it's a fun, throwback, nostalgic summer blockbuster movie. It's I'm telling you, if you're around my age in your mid to late 40s and you remember going to the theater to go see those Spielberg produced and directed films and enjoy them and still hold them all in high regard, this will probably tickle your pickle. This is the film for you, just in time to squeeze in at the end of the summer. But I would love to know your thoughts. Did you enjoy the end of Oak Street? Do you plan to see the end of Oak Street? Or you just didn't like the end of Oak Street? I would love to know your thoughts. Head on over to kbradionetwork.com, where you can subscribe to the website, where you can be notified of new episodes dropping on the site, as well as listen to previous episodes from this podcast. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing the show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of the end of Oak Street. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.